rights are to be demanded. So it's very important that we know what our rights are in regards to housing, and what are the rights in relation to asylum seekers and refugees too, which is our purpose today. I'm going to pass the microphone to, I'm going to leave the floor for Bruce Davis.
Yes.
He's a leader in promoting affordable housing, and he's been one of our brothers.
First of all, I want to tell a funny story, because I got called on June the 5th by a friend, a member of parliament, and he said, get down there and find out what the hell's going on, because I've heard that people are sleeping on the sidewalk. So I went down to the Ethiopian Association. Remember, we were calling motels, calling people, asking, can you put people up just for one night, for 3 nights? And I called one motel in Mississauga, and I said, yes, the Ethiopian Soccer Club missed their flight, and they need hotel rooms for 3 nights. Can you take them? And they said yes. If I'd called them and said, we have a refugee crisis in the city, can you take them? They wouldn't have taken them. So we drove them to the motel in Mississauga, and I called 2 of my neighbors in Etobicoke. This is at 11 o'clock at night. And I said, meet me at Kipling Station, bring a couple of cars. What's this all about? And I told them very quickly. 2 guys, got them out of bed. They drove up. We all drove out to Mississauga. If you ask people to help, they will help. And I feel bad about that little white lie, but those folks got a place to stay. They weren't on the sidewalk. They had showers. We got them fed. We got them started. And then you took over and did great things. So sometimes you have to get things done. So I tend to be solution oriented. So I'm really waiting for the second half of tonight's meeting so we can talk about solutions. But there were some other things that happened that week that were really important. Within 2 days, I had found vacant city buildings. One of them is 5 minutes from here, the old public health building at the East York Civic Center. It's been sitting vacant for 4 years. Found it. I found a vacant school through Toronto Lands Corporation, which Josh and I started. Toronto Lands Corporation has empty schools. Found one. They were happy to let us use it. And I conveyed all this to the city officials. Found a vacant church that was up for sale that the city wanted me to go up and take a look at. So I went up and took a look at it. Remember, we went up and took a look at it. And then it all stopped because it wasn't about finding space for people. It was not about finding a temporary location where people could get their feet. It wasn't about that. And I'll come back in a second about what it was really about. But that was within 2 days we found locations. Within 4 days, we had senior federal officials on the phone with senior City of Toronto officials talking about the quantum of the issue, the flow of people coming in, just the scope and magnitude of the issue. At that point, it was about 30 to 40 people per day. That was just Ethiopian and Kenyans. I don't know what was happening, but it was an order of magnitude 40 people a day. Get your head around that real fast. And the feds had known, really, since, I would say, the 5th of June. That was the flow, and that was the scope of the predicament. Nothing was done. We then went to council on the 14th of June. I've been going to council for 25 years. When we got there, we went there with 8 or 10 guys, or more, 15. The sergeant at arms stopped me and stopped us, and she said, who are you folks? What are you doing here? And I have to tell you, you're not allowed to protest. And I said, wait a minute, you have no idea who we are? You don't talk to us like that. I've been bringing people to council for 20 years. And you're stopping these folks? And she was going to explain to them how to behave. And I said, stop talking. You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea who you're talking to. And I was frankly embarrassed for my city. And I made us think about it. And then we got in and everyone was well behaved. Our friend, my former colleague Josh, wrote a motion to council to say we have a crisis and we want the city to work with the Ethiopian Association and others to work through a plan. He got up to go to a meeting with Brad because you were running for mayor, and as soon as he left, council took that and turned it inside out. They didn't vote against it. They turned it inside out. and said the federal government should work with the Ethiopian Association and the other groups to develop a plan. And it wasn't a recorded vote, I remember, because nobody wanted to actually put their hand up. It was the last item. It was cynical. I was embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. So all of this is to say, this is not about finding a place for people to catch their breath when they get off the plane in crisis. It's not about that. This is about money.
Yes.
This is 100% a play about money. And I remember that first week, if you land in Montreal, you get a hotel. If you land in Toronto, you do not get a hotel. You get the sidewalk. So I suggested to Mesrat, what did I suggest? We're going to put all of our folks on a bus to Montreal. And we're going to make a big stink about it. And we're going to embarrass the city over it. And we didn't do it because you folks are so nice and you're frankly at risk. You don't want to take on the system that you're dependent on. So my Montreal friends only know two things about Toronto now. First, when it snows, we call in the army. And the second is, when people need us, we leave them on the sidewalk. That's what they know.
Thank you, Chris Davis. Have you ever considered of changing your profession to investigative journalism? You did a good job with that, and also you're an activist. We really appreciate your work. So our guest speaker is here from the church, Minister Isaac Opong, one of the leaders on the support for the refugees living in this on site at Miracle Arena for All Nations. I would invite you to the floor. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody's well. I'm glad to be here to share with you and to speak with you and to also catch some